Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining our talk today. My name is Alex Hanway. I'm a Business Development Director here at Thales, and I'm here to tell you about our partnership with Couchbase and how you can use our encryption to help keep your sensitive data safe. So a little bit about us, about Thales Group. So I like to say that we're the largest company you've never heard of. We're 80,000 people across the globe. And really, we do everything from data security all the way to satellites. We run ground transportation for some of the world's largest metropolitan areas. We do avionics for planes that most of you take on a yearly basis. And we even do defense systems. And one of the common aspects across all of those different industries is that wherever we play, we tend to be either the industry leader or among the top 2 industry leaders in that space. So really, when it comes to things like security, whether it is data security or actual physical security, we are subject matter experts in the area. Specifically, the group that I work for is called Cloud Protection and Licensing. And we focus on 3 pillars, one of which I'll dive into a little bit more today. The first is data encryption and key management. How do you keep your sensitive data safe wherever it resides? The second is identity and access management. How do you assure the identities of individuals or systems within your enterprise? And then the third is a business line that we call software monetization, but you might be more familiar with as digital rights management. So how do you enforce your software licensing to make sure that it's only available to those that have actually paid for it? So altogether, we comprise the Cloud Protection and Licensing business unit, part of the digital identity and security business line within Thales Business Group. So with that as a background, understanding who we are, let's dive right in. And so the perspective that I'm going to share with you today is also one from someone who talks to a lot of customers. So in addition to our partners, because I do handle our database and big data portfolio, I really interface a lot with customers and understand sort of what are the challenges they face, not just in initially adopting a database, but also maximizing their investment, getting as much out of the database, all the functions and features, et cetera, as they possibly can. And the first challenge that we hear consistently, by nature of what we do, is the need for security. If you think about what a database is, its most fundamental layer, it really is a consolidation of all of your data. And so much of that data is sensitive. It can be personally identifiable information. It can be credit card numbers, or in many instances now that we're entering the realm of big data and massive collection, it can be 2 disparate, seemingly innocuous pieces of information that, when tied together, can actually identify an individual. And so, before customers really get the most out of their database, they're concerned and they have to figure out, how do I keep this information safe? Because there is a lot there that is sensitive, that really does need to have some layer of protection. On top of that, you dive a level deeper, it then becomes, well, I'm not just keeping this data safe from nefarious hackers that are lurking in the dark corners of the web. Really, there are individuals within each and every one of our organizations that have specific privileges. And that's a lot to ask of some individual that has those privileges. You're taking the risk that they're going to always do the right thing. And unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. So how do you mitigate that risk within your organization so that everyone has the roles or has access to do everything they need to do according to the roles and responsibilities without really putting your enterprise at risk? The third is compliance. And this is the backdrop for all of this. So it doesn't really matter what industry that you're operating in or what geography you're based in. There is some rule or regulation that governs exactly what you need to do from a security perspective. Some of that is prescriptive. It could be something like PCI DSS that articulates clearly that you need encryption and key management. Or it could be something that is less prescriptive. It could be something like GDPR, where instead of asking you to encrypt your data specifically, it asks you to demonstrate control of your data. So how do you do this, right? And what are the implications involved? And that's something that we'll get to a little deeper here in a moment. And then the last, especially these days, is the complexity of the cloud. Now, if you were to listen to any of the messaging around cloud services, is positioned as the easier, simpler, more streamlined option. And in some ways it is, but in a lot of other ways, our customers are finding that it's incredibly complex. And fundamentally, how do you trust that your data is safe and secure when it's residing in a data center that you don't control, right? Or how do you address all of these challenges when maybe workloads are split between clouds? I mean, hybrid multi-cloud models are becoming increasingly common. How do you control for all of these factors when you adopt a database? And that's where Thales comes into play. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of what we actually do, let's kind of review at a high level what exactly is encryption and key management, because I think that helps demystify the topic and kind of make sense of what we're going to offer today. So fundamentally, with encryption, there's an algorithm and a random value, or what we call a secret. When you take that value, that secret, and the algorithm, you can basically render the data unreadable. And so the secret, or this key, really becomes the proxy for all of your security. You're divorcing the security from the data itself to the key itself. So by virtue of watching that key and understanding that that key is safe, you're also ensuring that the data itself is safe. And the best real world example for this would be a car valet and the way that they watch the keys for your car. So, you hand over your key to a valet, they take your car to a parking spot, they lock it, and rather than leave the key on the hood, they take that key back to a box where they hang it and they watch it. And by virtue of watching that key, they know that your car is safe. Well, the same thing is happening here with data. Once it's encrypted and you take that key and you move it to a separate location, again, by virtue of watching that key, you know that your data is safe wherever it resides, whether it's your Couchbase server installed on your premises, or if it's located in a third-party cloud provider. Now, the advantage to this is that you can use encryption all over your enterprise. It can be for your Couchbase database, it can be for your applications, it can be for your storage or your file servers. Really, the fundamental aspect here is once you encrypt your data, really you can protect it anywhere by virtue of watching those keys. That, however, poses a new problem. If your encryption proliferates across your enterprise, then that's a lot of keys to manage. And if you think about that valet box, the benefit or the value and the security of that person being there is the fact that all of those keys are consolidated in one place. And by virtue, again, of having them all in one place and being under your control, the valet knows that all of the cars in the parking lot are safe. And so really that's fundamentally the backdrop that we're going to be running into today, we're going to be speaking against is how do you secure your data in a way that's coherent across the enterprise as part of a cohesive strategy. And so that's where our partnership with Couchbase comes into play. So with Couchbase, we have integrated our file encryption solution known as CipherTrust Transparent Encryption. And this is an agent that operates at the OS layer that is pretty elegant in its simplicity. So on this agent, you define which directories are to be encrypted. And every time that the database wants to write into that directory, the agent will intercept, will take its key and will encrypt the data in that database. And then conversely, every time the database wants to call that directory, the agent will reverse the process. They'll take the key, they'll decrypt the data, and they'll return clear text data back to the database. Anything that's not defined on that agent is left alone. So if you have, say, 3 directories of sensitive information, but 50 directories of information that can be left alone, the agent will only concern itself with those 3 directories. We say this isn't transparent because everything above it, from the database to the application, doesn't even know it's there. They operate normally. You don't have to make any changes to your application. You don't have to make any architecture changes to your database. They operate, they read and write to disk, and it's the agent that does all the work. And because you are controlling this, you have access to the OS layer, you are installing the agent, you have access to the key manager yourself, you remain in complete control of those encryption keys, whether you are deploying this in your own data centers or it's up in the cloud as some infrastructure as a service. So again, thinking back to that valet example, you're the one with the box watching the keys. So how this sort of rounds out and why it's important. So there's some additional features that kind of correspond with the basic security here that really become valuable for you on your journey to both compliance and securing your sensitive data. And the first is, on top of the base functionality, we've added a layer of access controls, all of which are defined by policies that you get to set. So for example, let's say in your organization, finance needs access to one folder, and legal needs access to a second, and HR needs access to folder 3. Well, what you can do is through policy, you can define that legal has only access to that first folder, or finance has only access to that first folder, legal has access only to its folder, and HR has access only to its folder, and that you can't cross-pollinate. You can even go so far as to say that legal can write to its folder but cannot read, or finance can read but cannot write, and HR can do both. And so it's that level of granularity that allows you to start separating duties between different entities within your organization to start mitigating the risk of privileged users. So your database administrator can be responsible for the data without ever having access to the keys to return that data to a readable state. And separately, your security administrators can have access to all the keys, but never have access actually to the data that those keys correspond to. So that way, no single individual or entity within the organization has access to both the keys and the sensitive data at the same time. All of this is reported. So by virtue of its location, that agent is reading all of the calls to the data in the directory, and the corresponding key manager that accompanies this agent records all of that and can output it in easily readable logs, things that you can incorporate into your event tools to sort of review and monitor all of this in real time, right? And so if you're thinking about security, what the partnership offers here isn't just the fact that we can encrypt the data at rest, it's the fact that we add all of these other tooling around it to give you really better visibility into how your data is being used, who's accessing your data, and most importantly, who can control that data. So what does the functionality do actually when we tie back to the challenges that companies face? So the first and foremost, it gives you better control, right? It's the security around the data itself. So when we think about things like PCI or GDPR, it satisfies both requirements, right? In the PCI instance, it gets down to explicitly addressing the prescriptions that PCI lays out in terms of encryption key management. In terms of GDPR, is putting you in control of your data. You can encrypt it, and through the logs showing access to the keys, you're demonstrating that only administrator A has had access to folder A, right? You have that level of detail that for auditors and regulators, you can pull up and say, I've been in control of my data the entire time, even though this database has been residing in a third-party cloud. When it comes to privileged insider risk, the access policies, the policy-based access controls, again, allow you to mitigate which privileged users have access to which set of sensitive data, whether they even have access to it at all, right? And all of this, again, is logged so that you can demonstrate this to your auditors. So in terms of security, you're ticking all of the boxes, plus getting into compliance. For those that operate in extremely highly regulated industries or maybe work with federal governments, we do offer a version of our key manager that is FIPS 140-2 level 3 validated, which means that it is a tamper-proof hardware appliance. And so for that key manager, the range goes everything from a virtual machine that you can install in any environment for the most basic needs to higher performing, higher security physical appliances that you can put in your data center, again, to demonstrate your own control and provenance. And because we have these external physical appliances, it really does allow you to put keys in a place that have both physical and logical security. So it's actually impossible for anyone to physically take the server and try to get in there in some other way to take the keys off of the appliance. Once they're in, they're never coming out. You can think of them like a bank vault. And then scalability. So, so often people consider security to be an obstacle to the business. And we're excited about the partnership with Couchbase in this capacity because the transparent nature of the solution allows the database in your applications to operate as they normally would and to scale. And so the exciting thing about encrypting at this layer and using things like our key manager is that there is a negligible impact to the performance of your database, to the performance of your applications. I mean, most customers don't even realize that the encryption is actually there. Our key managers handle up to millions of keys. And so when you're thinking about performance of reading and writing into the various directories, if you're thinking about how many keys you actually need across your enterprise, this is a platform solution that actually scales with you. So in short, that is the partnership that we have with Couchbase, the benefits of taking encryption on your journey with Couchbase. We're here to work with you and our database partners to make sure that your data is safe, is secure, and that really this isn't a holdup to all the business goals that you have across your enterprise. So we do have a range of additional information available on our various websites. You can either go to the Couchbase website for more information, or you can visit us at Thales CPL. The information is here on the screen. Check us out. We've got some solution briefs and some other materials available. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll get you connected with some subject matter experts to help you in your needs. So thank you again for the time. I appreciate it today. If you have any questions, my email's on the screen. I'm always happy to follow up with customers. Thank you. Take care and enjoy the rest of your conference.